Right, we're a bit late, but
We're going to use this then.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Right, just forget the last 10 minutes and we'll start here, okay? So we got this fantastic screen as well to sort of show some of the stuff off on. So, I'm Philip Oliver.
I'm Andrew Oliver.
Together we're known as the Oliver Twins, and we've been writing games since the early 80s. We're not really writing them so much anymore these days, but we are...
Directing them and now investing in them.
Yes, and advising on them.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, enough of that. You're here to sort of hear about Dizzy because I gave Chris the option of what do people want us to talk about, and Chris put a little vote thing out, and it came up Dizzy, which we know a little bit about that, so that was okay. Right. So, do you want to talk about Spectrum?
Right, we'll talk about the Spectrum. So, okay, there seems to be a lot of Spectrum fans in the audience
who
now.
has Spectrum here?
So, oh bloody hell, nearly every hand, nearly. I might forgive him because he's, what, 8? I don't know how old he is, but he didn't put his hand up. 10! Sorry, okay. You're forgiven, but you can buy Spectrum next soon, I think. So, anyway, and there's certainly a lot of them out here. Anyway, so this is the, do you want to play with the focus and see if we can get the focus slightly better? Right, while I'm talking about it, this is so we're going to read text. Okay, so twist it or something because it's in focus over there. It's not there. Right. Okay. Just twist it. Hardware solution again. Right. Okay. So I mean, this was the computer that we sort of got famous making games on. Although it wasn't our first computer. The first computer actually is here somewhere. And you don't tend to see these at the retro shows.
No, there is one out there.
Oh, okay. Right, so...
Who had one of these? Dragon 32. You had one, Dragon 32?
Yeah, so operating system by a little known company called Microsoft.
Yeah.
And you boot it up, it says Basic by Microsoft. Anyway, and made by Mattel.
And those of you who haven't had...
Yeah. But, yeah, just very quickly, I mean, it was actually an advantage.
It just feels like an empty shell.
We bought that
Really
because
weird.
it had a keyboard and it was colour and everything like that, whereas at the time, this didn't have really a proper keyboard, and so our parents said, how can you type on that thing?
It had a rubber keyboard.
Yeah, so we had that, but that was actually an advantage because it meant that there were no games out for it, so we had to make our own. And it was all basic and it had sprites. No weird colour clash or anything like that. It just didn't sell. So we made games and learned on that, which was very good. But then if we wanted to write games and make money, it was on the humble Spectrum. We actually did it via an Amstrad. We bought an Amstrad first and then an Amstrad with disk drive and plugged it into the Spectrum using a printer cable, which was a unique solution because we now had a slave computer and we could compile our programs on the Amstrad, save it to disk, send it down to the Spectrum, and if it crashed, we didn't care. We just needed to do a little bit bootloader to pretend that it was a printer. So but it would just fill the memory with a dump of code. Anyway, so yeah, that's what we dealt with. We made sure all of our games ran on the 48K Spectrum. Virtually no one had the 16K Spectrum. Like there was a really early one that came out. I'm not quite sure how that worked. But 48K Spectrum, even though there were lots of other variants, we wanted to always make it work on that. Interestingly enough, it was the first one that actually sort of embraced games. And it's a really funny thing to say that with computers, but they were all coming out, and you can go and have a look at the Commodore 64 adverts, brilliant for your home accounts. That's what the Commodore 64 was. It's like, we all played Monty Mole and stuff on it. I don't know, home accounts.
With a power cable on any of those early computers, I wouldn't put any accounts on any
No.
of those.
Yeah, actually Commodore 64 would quite often just crash, and sometimes it wasn't the game, it was just a slightly dodgy power cable, or
Most
just
of the computers have dodgy power cables.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so it was the machine that had the games. All of our friends went to university. We were given a year out by our dad to sort of say, like, you don't have to go to university if you can actually make a business out of making games. Because up to then, we'd written games at school, sent them off, they got published, they're brilliant. You could go to Woolworths and Smiths and see our games in the shop. We didn't get any money for it, but we just got ripped off a lot. So we had to actually make money. So there was a drive, we had 1 year to make money. So focused, what kind of games do we write and on what computer? So the Spectrum was the way we went. Moving on. Okay, so we knew the Spectrum, and you all know the Spectrum, for classics like this. And this is what we were looking at. So Chucky Egg turned on absolutely everything. Manic Miner, ridiculously bloody hard. I can't believe. One of the reasons we wrote Dizzy, and the way it was, is because we were really annoyed by some of these games. It was so hard on the sort of, you had to be on the exact pixel of the edge of the platform, jump, and if you got that jump wrong, you'd fall onto spikes. I mean, they were just ridiculously hard. So Dizzy was
it's supposed to be a lot easier, but
yeah.
Even by today's standards,
Yeah,
it's rock
we were trying to, I mean, some of these things had interesting locations. I think you went around a house in this one, and it was quite interesting, so we were trying to, like, make a nice world with lots of levels. So that's the Spectrum Classics that you all know. We wrote a few Spectrum games, so that's our Spectrum games. A few.
Quite busy.
Yeah, we were quite busy for a few years. So that was between 86 and 92. So we clearly did more than our year out. We just carried on writing while our friends were all at university.
That's because people kept buying them.
I
blame it on the
people like you, yeah, people like you. Kept buying them. So,
If people hadn't bought them, we wouldn't have made them. So
yeah, so it was a good time. It was a huge amount of work. We were literally working 18-hour days. And people
it's
think
funny
that,
because newspapers were saying we were living a rock star lifestyle. Well,
yeah, the rock stars don't usually spend that much time in front of computers.
Totally.
Oh, and let's remember, with an RF cable. And that's quite important, because if we think about ourselves in front of nice screens like this, no problems. Whereas actually, we were in front of pretty rubbish TVs, and there's a reason why it had 32 characters across and 24 down. That's all the memory could take. But frankly, that's all your eyes could take on a TV. I mean, you didn't have any higher resolution, so. Anyway,
he did a year coding the Game Boy.
The Game Boy, I mean, that was unbelievably bad. That screen, if you go back and look at the, this is the place to go back and have a look at the screen of the Game Boy. Tetris was an absolutely brilliant game. I have played it to death, go to sleep, see blocks falling in front of my eyes and all sorts of stuff. But so many games tried to scroll, and we did one as well, Judge Dredd. You can't scroll on that thing, everything's a blur. It's just ridiculous. But our publisher, Acclaim, insisted that it was a scrolling platformer game. And I kept on saying, no, let's make it flick screen. And he was like, oh, you're just copying out, you can't write it. Of course I can write it, the screen can't handle it, and my eyes can't handle it. And so, anyway. Yeah, so we wrote quite a few Dizzy games back then. That's a set of Dizzy games as it was back in the sort of late 80s, the games that we wrote, so that's what we shall talk about today. You give a little background of how we got to Dizzy.
Yeah, so we started writing, as Andrew said, on the Dragon 32. Then we moved on to the BBC Micro. We got really good at coding on the BBC Micro, and it had the ability to put 6502 assembler into basic code. So that actually helped us learn how to program machine code. But we started writing a few machine code games on the BBC, only for there to be no market, because everybody was pirating everything on BBC. It was also kind of a rich kids machine and in schools, so although you saw them quite often, they weren't really being used much for games beyond Elite. I mean, Elite just sold a ridiculous number. But after that, it was actually quite difficult to sell games. So we moved at the recommendation of Firebird. It was actually Tony Rainbird suggested that we actually move on to the Amstrad because it was a new computer, relatively new back then. This is about 85, and it was a good machine. And they basically gave us a contract to do convert across EasyArt, which is here, to the Amstrad. So I have to say they actually paid us, but they never published it. So we actually published it with somebody else. That's why it doesn't say Rainbird on it. But we also made a sprite package, and the sprite package basically allowed us to move sprites around the screen, but from basic code. Now the idea was that other hobbyists could actually use this to make games. We didn't really need to write BASIC at this time because we knew assembler and we could make much faster games. But in fact, it was an incredibly useful tool for us to make games much, much faster by having both those packages, but mainly the Panda Sprites. So we moved on to the Amstrad. As Andrew mentioned, we had this 1 year out where we had to try and make as much money as possible. So during the summer holiday, just finished sixth form, not going to university, we had to focus on making money. There was a trade show down at, I think it was Novotel.
Hammersmith.
Hammersmith, yeah. in September, first week of September. So we thought we'll go there and we'll tout around a new game idea and we'll try and get a contract. We were already working on a game called Excalibur, but unfortunately that didn't happen. That was supposed to be published by Firebird. They just never sent the contract. So we came up with the idea that what games would actually sell really well, and at the time Ghostbusters, the Commodore 64 Spectrum conversion of it, was selling really well, and we kind of concluded that if you want your game to sell really well, you need a really good image. So we came up with an IP that we could own for free, which was Robin Hood. Everybody would know what it was. We could do a side-on platform game. The objectives were obvious. You had projectile weapons, which was really cool.
We couldn't afford a film license.
And we couldn't afford a film license.
So we did what Disney do.
They can afford film licenses now.
I know, but they've been doing it for years, like making movies of old IP with no royalties.
Yeah. So anyway, so we did Robin Hood first, and actually that's a side-on platformer, character running around, and that actually did really, really well for us. It became a #1 hit, got converted to all different platforms, including the Spectrum. We didn't do the Spectrum version. In fact, the guy who did the Spectrum version took so flipping long that we made a passing comment to Codemasters whilst we were writing Ghost Hunters. God, we could have written that quicker ourselves, and we don't even know a Spectrum. At which point, David Darling sent us a Spectrum and says, "Well, the next game you can do yourselves." So, in fact, Ghost Hunters was just another side-on platform game, basically just trying to use a lot of the same code. We're good at reusing code, trust me. And just change the image and change the gameplay and the map and everything. So fundamentally, a lot of the same code, a lot of the same kind of mechanics, but we just kind of moved it on a little bit. In this one, we only had keys, which turned on some lifts and elevators, whereas on this one, we had a few more objects to find, and then they triggered other things. But they were never really that related, like a bubbling flask and things like that. But they weren't actually that related to the puzzles. But we finished it. It did relatively well. We did put it out on the Spectrum. That was our first Spectrum game. We then went off and wrote Grand Prix Simulator, but you don't want to know about that because that obviously is a different story. But then, whilst working on Ghost Hunters, I was very frustrated whilst drawing the graphics inside Panda Sprites. Does that mean don't touch that chair again?
No, it's just that you're leaning over a chair. You might want to point further across the screen.
Yeah, but whilst working on doing all the graphics for this, I was really frustrated that the head of the man was like 3 pixels by 3 pixels. And I was like, so do you kind of have a nose or not have a nose? If you have a nose, he looks like Pinocchio, and if you don't have a nose, it looks like he's kind of lost a boxing match or something. So I was like, oh, it's so frustrating how small it is. So just messing around, I just drew a really big face, put some expressions on it, go, hey Andrew, look at this. Look, I put some funny little arms on it, and I could put some little boots on it and stuff. And it was actually quite a nice little character, and like, oh, I can make him bob up and down. And there's a facility inside Panda Sprite to rotate sprites. So I said, look, we can make a little sprite rotation, so it can spin for the plot. And then we decided, because it was quite easy, to just flip the character out. So instead of the Ghost Hunter man running around, it was this little cartoon character, Dizzy, running around. It wasn't called Dizzy at that point, it was just a big face with red arms.
But it wasn't an egg.
It wasn't an egg. It was just a big face, all right? Big happy face. And it was running around. Didn't really seem appropriate running around this haunted mansion, so we kind of moved that out and we said, we'll come back to that at some point. Ghost Hunters went out, that was fine. Did Grand Prix Simulator, and decided to come back to that funny little character we had. And we were saying, well, what cartoon world could we put this guy into? So we kind of made up one of the inspirations was the Smurfs. There was a Smurfs cartoon at the time, so that was one of the inspirations. Of just kind of a nice little magical land to put him in.
Okay.
The first Dizzy, it did okay. Sales were all right. Grand Prix Simulator had kind of knocked it out of the park, and Robin Hood was fantastic. Ghost Hunters was okay. Dizzy was okay. But Dizzy just kept selling, and so by about a year later, because it just continued to sell, it was always in the top 20 somewhere. The sales eventually got there. One of the things with selling games in shops is that shops only really give you 2 or 3 months on the shelves, and then those games come off to make room for new games. But in fact, Dizzy had been given space, like it was still on the shelves a year later, which was great. And we were getting loads of fan mail. The fan mail was usually saying, kind of, can you help me solve some of the problems in the game? But I love the game, but I'm a bit stuck here or whatever. So about a year later, we decided we'll go back and we'll do another one, and we'll try and improve a few bits and pieces.
Okay, so that is Treasure Island Dizzy. We were trying to get it out for the next Christmas, which we managed to do and it went straight to #1 and sold phenomenally well. So it did look as though everyone who had bought the previous one throughout the whole year had gone straight out and bought it, because it just went really well. We have to make an apology, and I know that some of you have heard this before, but yeah, it's only got one life, and that is because we designed the whole thing out and thought, wouldn't it be cool if you can, like, you're on a treasure island, but you get to another island and you kind of swim across to it. But then we remembered Pinocchio that we loved watching, the Disney movie, where he walks across the seabed, and that's a brilliant scene. And we thought, brilliant, we'll have that, because it's more interesting than just swimming across the surface of water, to actually make it so that he goes down and underneath it. You can swim around underneath, you can find a shipwreck, you can have various fish and stuff swimming around you, you can walk along the bottom. Unfortunately, it did mean that if you put your snorkel down underwater, you're dead, and because it's multiple screens, we didn't know where to reset him. You could reset him up back onto the beach, but what if you put other objects down underwater? You can never ever get them.
And what happened if you get them the other beach?
Yeah, and so we only realised this when we pretty much finished the game, and we went, well, hang on, what if you do this, and what if you do that, and what if you climb the tree to the top, and then drop something and drop out the tree and you can't get back up? And there were various things, and we're like, oh my God, one life. I mean, we all only have one life. I mean, come on. It was only Pac-Man that invented this bloody 3-life thing. So we thought, right, one life, and it was a bit of a cop-out.
Space Invaders was before that.
Yeah. Okay, Space Invaders might have had 3 lives. Anyway, so we gave it one life because we had designed the entire thing out and worked out that actually sometimes you can get in a bit of a pickle with these puzzles and it doesn't really work. So got the game out and yeah, did really well, but massively had a frustration.
And we were frustrated by it as well.
Yeah, so
I have to say though, everybody still says that Treasure Island Dizzy is one of the best Disney games. For us, it was a bit like, oh God.
It's a bit embarrassing. So because it was a bit embarrassing, hang on.
Next screen.
Yeah, I thought I did press the next screen. So we sort of said, right, now that we know, it sold so well, we've got to do another one, and we've got to fix the fundamental problem of 3 Love. So the entire time we were thinking, we've got to get really, really clever, interlinked puzzles that can't be messed up. And that is actually quite a tricky thing, which is why we designed them all out on paper and had all these sort of lines going everywhere, of which it's there. Behind you.
Yeah,
there's
actually
a version.
Yeah, this is another Dizzy. The Fantasy World Dizzy map is currently at the museum in Sheffield, the
National Video Game Museum in Sheffield, yeah. So they can see how we were trying to plan these things out on paper and play them through. There's no way you could sort of play it all on the computer because it would just take too long and trying to keep it all in your head. So nowadays with PC it'd be really easy to do, as you shall see. Okay, so that is Fantasy World Dizzy 3. Oh, there's the map. It's on the next bloody screen. Right, I should know this. I did this PowerPoint only a couple of days ago. Right. Okay. So, and if you notice, oh God, it's a bit whited out there. Anyway, they were all done on little tiny post-its because we kept on sort of like throwing them away and redrawing it and stuff and reworking things. Whereas otherwise it would be a complete mess. Although one of the post-its is
One of our project files, we used to have these boxes, and basically just throw everything in the project file. There'd be lots of kind of cassettes. Fantasy World Dizzy Spectrum Master.
Yeah.
That's the source code of the PC, because at this point we'd actually moved to using a PC for this one.
Okay.
PDS, Programmers Development System, which was a 386 with a 20 meg hard drive?
I don't know, something like that. You'd never need more than that. You'd never need more than memory than that.
Yeah, and a floppy disk drive, obviously. Floppy.
Yeah, so, but at the end of all of our projects, we would always just stuff all the notes and all the discs into these and stick them in the back room. And pretty much everyone we know who's written games said, oh, we've chucked them away, or we use the discs. So, all these people here, there's a few people in the audience probably, goes, no, I chucked it all away. It's like, well, we didn't. This was our life. We spent bloody months doing this. It's like, we're going to save this lot.
Oh, 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
This one. There's the Amstrad discs with all the graphics on, because we were still doing the graphics in.
Reading those discs is a bit more of a challenge, it has to be said, because you've got to find machines that will actually read these things. And even if you do find an old Amstrad that will read that disc, then you go, oh, I want to get it on the Dropbox or something. how do I get that onto Dropbox?
We have done it.
We have. We have done
Everything
it.
is now. I have to say that Jason Fitzpatrick over at the Cambridge Museum.
Yeah, he's done everything for us. He copied
he's
everything.
So we've now got a Dropbox with absolutely all source code, source graphics, source absolutely
All of our
everything,
games.
which is nice to have. If anybody
Right.
Right, keep going, Andrew.
Right, okay. So, another thing that we wanted to do is when we did Treasure Island Dizzy, we stuck him on a Treasure Island, and we didn't really think about this because we thought, oh, it conjures up all these enigmatic things about Treasure Islands and stuff. Enigmatic thing about Treasure Islands. But then you realise there's actually nobody on a Treasure Island. They're always empty, aren't they? I mean, apart from like digging up treasure, they don't generally.
Find Man Friday or something.
Man Friday. We weren't going to have Man Friday in there. Anyway, but we did have a frustration. We did have a little bit of a frustration that it was always going to be a bit empty. So therefore, we decided in the next one, we'd make sure that there's an excuse to have more characters because we can have talking to characters in dialogue boxes. And so we decided Dizzy needs a family in need, because they were always asking. Always asking.
Needy characters.
Yeah, so
Nobody ever does anything for themselves in these games.
yeah, yeah, they don't even animate themselves. But anyway, that's another thing. And then we created various other characters. I mean, that's actually the graphics from, I think, an Amiga version or something. But anyway, so we created lots of characters because that would make it far more interesting for people to play. So some of the technical details, I thought it would be interesting to just go through some of the technical details. So we had to fit these games into 48K memory. We wanted really big open worlds, loads and loads of screens, lots of characters, lots of dialogue, lots of puzzles, because that's a really cool thing to do. So in 48K of memory, which is less memory than your icon on your app, on your smartphone. It's less memory than the icon.
And
So,
it's 2 seconds of an MP3.
yeah, so it's quite a small bit of memory. So
That little icon there takes about the amount of memory to store than a whole Spectrum game.
yeah, so and this was a big thing back in the day, and anyone who wrote on Spectrums and Commodores and things like that would always work out your memory map. And so here's a 48K Spectrum, and you've got the screen, that takes 6K, so you lost 6K already. You've got the attributes, you've got a bit of reserved RAM for the operating system. So generally speaking, it was something like 41K of actual real usable memory. How much you wanted to allocate for each of the different parts of the game. So 4K for the music, because that's important. The music's really cool. So, but that is a whopping great 4K. I mean, that big thing probably made Dizzy good. Is we gave it 4.5K for just Dizzy himself, which is quite a lot of memory to use up. Meaning that there's a lot less for the map and game text. I mean, the dialogue might only be ASCII code and small dialogue boxes all fitted in like. Well, it's like we had to get it in like 20 characters across because
You've got to be careful about how you write your English so that it actually fits on the screen as well.
Yeah, so we're just trying to.
Rumpelstiltskin.
No, the word Rumpelstiltskin, we can't have a character Rumpelstiltskin because you'd have to have Rumpels and then put it on the next line. You physically couldn't write the word across the screen.
Anyway.
So anyway, the font and background sprites, 5.5K, and some lookup tables and things. And there was a bit of listing here. Which you can't see, but it was all written in Z80, which is great fun. I mean, I do like it in the fact that it was real sort of code cracking. I mean, it's why Codemasters had the name Codemasters, because you were masters of code, and it was all about what you could get the computer to do in very, very limited instructions. Right, so out of that box, we just found an old sprite sheet. So you'll find everything is always 0 to 255 because it's an 8-bit computer. So there are, I guarantee it, 255 sprites.
Less.
Yeah.
I don't think we use them all, to be fair.
Ooh, blimey, wasted. We've just run out of memory. Run out of memory. We had moved on pixel sprite printing because in the original Dizzy we had here's little Dizzy, isn't he wonderful? Like this is the original Spectrum, the original Dizzy. But if he walked in front of a tree, there's Dizzy. And one of the reasons he does that is because you couldn't see him. If he's a stationary character, and we did have him as just a stationary character, but if he stopped still in front of something, he's gone. He's like, well, where's he gone? He's like a chameleon. He's like, if he doesn't move, you can't see him. So if you animate him constantly, you'd see him because there'll be a fuzzy mess whatever. But in the original Dizzy, we did have large areas of black blank screen because it was awkward. We felt bad about the fact that every time you walked in front of something, it's like, I can't see him. So we moved things on to a masked frame technology. But it did take an awful lot of memory and that is why there is so much memory on Dizzy himself, because all his flips and rotating and stuff. So you've got all the animations, but then what you've got to do is have a mask, yeah,
a mask
sort of
for all of it.
So print a black hole and then print him into it. So that just instantly doubles the memory. But it does mean that you can walk in front of things and he always stays as he is. We did. Is it even working? I don't know if it's working.
Yeah,
Is it working? Oh, okay. Yeah. It's only if I take it very close. Yeah, okay. Right, because it's not working there. It's right on the edge.
Yeah, it's working.
Anyway, you can still hear me, can't you?
Yeah.
So I don't know why I'm holding it. Right, okay. So, yeah, we did experiment with the idea of actually keeping him sort of white. Because we thought, like, keep him white, you definitely, with the way the attributes worked, you couldn't have the red gloves as he was moving around. But you just had this big chunk of white just following around. And it just looked awful. So it's like, right, he will be slightly chameleon-like. He will take on the colours in the background. So, creating the screens, God blimey. I think the talk was about creating Dizzy. So, there were some really colourful games out there, looking like this. I can't remember, this is fantasy karate game, I think. Anyway, platforming karate game.
Last Samurai.
Sorry?
Last Samurai.
Last Samurai. That's pretty damn cool. We were impressed by this. But screens were generally character mapped. They certainly were on the Commodore 64. And if you character map a screen, you've got 32 characters across, 24 down. That's 768 bytes. That's 3/4 of a K for one screen, just to sort of hold that screen, although you've got a panel there. But if you did that, then you'd only end up with something like 30 screens. And Dizzy is all about having very big maps. So we were looking at different ways of doing it. So we came up with just a very, very simplistic way of doing it. But it worked. And that is, you have a table of pointers that look at the start of each room. Yeah, it gets to the start of each room, and then just says X, Y coordinate of a sprite and the colour that you want it to be. And so you can sort of just slap cloud in, and that's only 4 bytes. Slap a barrel in there, 4 bytes. Slap that in there, but you can change the colours around if you want. But it meant that you could have full screens that took virtually no memory.
Well, a lot less.
A lot less. So yeah, we were giving ourselves about 200 bytes per screen. So it was a third of the memory, meaning that we could generally, our games were about 60 screens typically, whereas other games were probably a lot less. And they had a bit of a different look about them because we'd created them in a different way. So there is a full article, I think it's 6 or 8 pages in Wireframe, all the technical details of how we created Dizzy. Even goes into Z80 programming a little bit. If anyone's interested, it's next article, next issue.
Next issue.
Right. Do you want to do this one?
Oh gosh.
Well, no, I'll do it because I've made the PowerPoint and you're probably wondering what the points are.
I'll just
go sit down. Right. You can do some of the slides that you wrote in a bit, but I wrote these anyway, only a couple of days ago. So, we were playing games on computers then, and as Philip said, things like Super Robin Hood, you picked up keys that would activate doors or lift or elevators or something. And this one was quite a popular game called Booty. And this really was down to like loads and loads of locked doors, and the doors had numbers on, and then the keys had numbers on, and you had to work your way around. So key number 4, well, that's door number 6. Oh, there's door number 4. So you had to work out how to get around the map by picking up the right key to the right door. And it was actually a really playable game. I don't know, you can go back and play it out there probably. But we were just thinking we could be so much more imaginative, and that's really where it came from, is trying to sort of go, well, if you had, rather than a door, you had a fire, and then you had a bucket of water, then you could pick up the bucket of water, go back down to the door, throw a bucket of water on the fire. It's exactly the same thing. We just put a little tiny different graphic on it, and we put a little narrative to say you throw the bucket of water onto the fire. Putting the fire out, you can now pass. That was fundamentally a massive part of it, and it's actually very simplistic. I mean, in this amount of memory and in these basic computers, you have to be very simplistic. So,
worked well.
Yeah, so it was just the key and the door mechanic all dressed up. And then we got some examples. So get past the rat, pick up the bread, put the bread in front of the rat, and the rat comes, eats the bread and runs off, and you never see him again, and you can get past. Tying the rope on the crocodile, a lot of people didn't get that. Jump onto the crocodile and very quickly drop the rope because it will tie it up. But it feels dangerous because you are jumping onto a crocodile. So that one.
No, good one, right. Keep going.
Yeah, anyway, but then we moved it on, and what we wanted to do is these multiple step puzzles. And this is where it got interesting. So you find a cow, you take it to the market, you give it to the market keeper, he gives you magic beans, you plant the magic beans in a certain place, you can find the watering can or the bucket, you fill it with water, you throw the water on the bean and it goes to the beanstalk. And it was like those multiple puzzles that we were trying to get that would be more interesting.
They worked really well.
Okay, so, and then story and dialogue, which generally Philip wrote a lot of this stuff, but I did the PowerPoint, so, but...
So you're going to talk about it now. Take credit for it, why don't you?
So, yeah. So if you see spelling mistakes and all sorts of stuff...
It's my fault.
It's him, so...
It's so easy with the internet these days to just double check spellings. Back then it was a pain in the arse. I mean, they were dictionaries, but...
Anyway, I didn't even realise that Kathmandu was a real place.
No, we didn't. Neither
That was
of us
it.
did.
That was in the game, Kathmandu, and we'd heard it, and it's in a poem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Puff the Magic Dragon.
No.
Or something. Anyway, Kathmandu, and we thought it sounded cool, so we put it in, but it's like the first time we typed that in Google, it'd be gone, it's a place, and it's near the Everest, Mount Everest, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, but we didn't have the luxury of the internet, or even books, it seems.
Actually, it's funny you should mention it, right? We learnt Z80 out of this pocket guide, which was $2.99, and that's what we learnt Z80 out of.
Yeah.
But you couldn't just walk into a bookshop and go, I want a book on Z80 coding, because it's so specialist. I mean, who needs those books back then? So to actually find this little thing was actually really good. The fact that it happened to be $2.99 was a bargain.
But it only tells you how the instructions work. It doesn't tell you techniques,
There's no techniques
on
at
how
all.
to use it.
We have to work out all our own techniques.
Yeah.
Some of which are quite good, some of which...
Yeah. Self-modifying code.
Yeah, they
Writing
wouldn't have
code
been,
ahead of
that wouldn't
itself.
have been in books.
No, I don't think it's a good idea. It all broke as soon as we went to cartridges as well. They're
Because they're all saved on the ROM.
Yeah,
So you can't do
load
something.
of my code stopped working. Anyway, but it's really nice to be able to put story and dialogue, and that differentiated Dizzy from the Manic Miners and Jet Set Willies at the time, because we were making up stories about these needy characters and all these different puzzles and the way we were getting past it. And it was really fun, just brainstorming, sort of, I don't know, like there's a rope and you've got a knife and you cut the rope with a knife, like really obvious things. I say really obvious things, some people clearly didn't find them as obvious as others. We thought they were all obvious, and we still get to this day as people coming out and say, never found what the red herring was used for. Yeah, okay. Clearly that was one of our jokes. But anyway,
Keep going.
So we wrote them on the Amstrad and Spectrum. They were popular games, and so other developers copied them to the Commodore 64.
The Amiga version.
And Amigas and all sorts of stuff. So we've got a little comparison here. Here's the sort of castle screen on the Spectrum, the Amstrad, how different colour scheme, and then the Commodore 64 colour.
And no
copied
attribute
it.
flash.
So that's the same screen on the ST and Amiga, although they look pretty much the same.
What's the reason for that?
And then later on, most people left the 8-bit world to go to the 16-bit world. They left the Spectrum and the Commodore behind to go to the ST and Amiga. We didn't, because all of our mates said, oh, I've got a new ST or a new Amiga. Do you want to come round? I've got a load of discs. We'll copy some discs for you. Give us 3 games. And we were like, so how many you bought? Well, not many. I bought 1, but generally everyone shares everything. And it's like, well, if we're going to try and make a business out of it, because we didn't want real jobs, we wanted to write games, we've got to make some money. And so we just thought, this is just terrifying that everyone is just copying them and there's no copy protection or anything. So we were staying back on the Spectrum where things were good, we're making some money, writing games, comfortably, we knew what we were doing, to move to a different language, 68,000, to move to high-res graphics, and we don't draw very well, as the graphics sort of demonstrate.
Cool, right.
Right.
But we're not capable of doing 16 graphics.
Yeah. So, but then we saw the Nintendo come out, and we just thought, well, that's still an 8-bit machine.
Well,
we can
when
write.
we saw it come out, we went to America and
Yeah.
we saw how big it was. and
Yeah,
it
that
was a huge
Mario,
market.
that Mario guy, he's quite popular.
Yeah, he was.
And we looked at that and thought, we could write that.
Yeah,
That's
easily.
6502, we could write that. The funny thing is, it is pretty much a Commodore 64 in a box. I mean, and
It's pretty similar.
we absolutely loved that NES, and we wrote some really cool games for it. And we look back and thinking, oh, I wonder if we should be writing on the Commodore 64.
Maybe we should do.
But,
But we were in Spectrum Camp.
Yeah, we were in Spectrum Camp on Z80. So, but then we came back and did some of our games back on the Nintendo. So this is Fantasy World Dizzy on the Nintendo.
Which got renamed to...
Yeah, Mystery World. Yeah, it was renamed because we moved it around a bit. But it is the same screen. That is the start screen. You're in the dungeon with the troll, the apple and the fire and stuff. That's your little troll. And there's bread and water.
One thing that's really
Get an
nice-
apple on Spectre, you get bread and water in the bloody Nintendo games. Anyway.
I have to say the NES is a really smart machine. I mean, it's just
It's
so
cool.
smooth. Everything just looks.
It hasn't dated quite so badly now.
No, but a lot of other computers have really dated badly. The NES hasn't dated.
It still looks,
badly.
it still looks classic. Anyway, so other people started making games beyond where we left off. You directed some of the development of these, didn't you?
Yeah, I did some of the design of them and did some.
While I
of the
was
things.
programming on the Nintendo.
Yeah. So, yeah, not going to go through them all. Let's move on.
Prince of the Oak, Magic Spellbound, those, yes.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
And then some arcade games.
We
You want
did.
to talk about those?
Yeah, we just saw. You go mad if you just keep writing the same sort of games. And so in the early days, we'd sort of done a platform game and a sport game. Platform game, sport game. So Super Robin Hood and Ghost Hunters. Then we did Grand Prix Simulator. Then we did another Dizzy game.
Yeah, we
then
did
we did
Pro
Pro
Ski.
Ski Simulator, another game. Then we did Jet Ski Simulator. Did lots of simulators. And we were just trying to alternate them just so that,
Advanced pinball machine.
just so that we didn't go crazy looking at this little character doing that. But then we thought we'll do some arcade games. And I think it was a frustration that we had some sort of friends or kids or nieces and nephews or something, and they just wanted a little Pac-Man
They
game
just
on their
wanted something
Spectrum.
simple.
And we said, well, we can write a Pac-Man. So we ended up writing Fast Food. And it was kind of game jam. It was, we wrote Pac-Man over the weekend, and then it was like, well, it actually works quite nicely. We obviously didn't blatantly rip it off. We changed it around and made sure that there were lots and lots of different levels and maps and things. And then it was later decided, oh, let's put Dizzy in it because it would sell and get noticed. Otherwise, we didn't know how we'd sell it. So, and then we thought we could move it on to a sort of this game where you have to push all the blocks around and try and find your way through mazes in Quick Snacks. So,
With Lyndon Sharp, right?
yep. Who's right in Pogie on the Spectrum next at the moment, which is just outside that door, which is cool. Right, so
This is where
little
we're going to find out Saint words. Oh, it does. Shocker.
ish.
Turn it up there. Is that maximum?
It's coming out your thing. You can hear it. Anyway, little compilation to finish that section. I'm good for time. Got a little bit of time.
Did anybody have a NES and any of the Dizzy games on the NES?
NES. It's sold in America, which unlike the Spectrums and the Amstrad games, so that was an interesting thing. The Codemasters, generally, I mean, all the Jet Set Willies and Manic Miners and stuff, they were all British games sold in Britain, pretty much exclusively.
Well, that's the way the world back then.
They started to leak into Europe a bit, but Codemasters were quite successful across Europe. And I remember going on a holiday to Spain, finding a computer shop and had all our games in. It's like, whoa, we're in Spain and they got games, but they didn't have much else. So Codemasters did well.
That's the one where the map's kicking around here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Back.
So Codemasters did well getting all across Europe, but when it went to the Nintendo, we wanted to really try to get into America and American sales, so which we did quite successfully.
That was clearly inspired by Juju.
Yeah.
I think we all know that. Graphics are getting better, aren't they, as the years go by?
I think it helped that the computers getting better. And people started employing artists.
Yeah, that was actually a killer move. Get artists to do graphics rather than programmers.
Oops, don't do it again. Okay, so as I say, we moved on to consoles and we started writing games on the Nintendo and the Mega Drive, Master System, and Game Gear.
There's some,
Yeah.
some Mega Drive versions of Dizzy 8.
So, but unfortunately, we left Codemasters.
We won't talk about that.
We won't talk about
It's in
that.
the book.
Yeah, it's in a book. Right.
With the evidence.
Yeah. When people say, "Why did you leave Codemasters? You were doing so well. You had all these best-selling games," and it's like, well,
Yeah, let's
there's a
not
long
go there.
story, and one day we'll stick it in a book. We
And
did.
we did.
So we did try to resurrect it with Codemasters back on the PlayStation 2. So we did this little trailer. We were then running Blitz Games and we made Lilo and Stitch, Little Mermaid, Chicken Run, various other games. Lots of film licenses, cartoon film licenses. But we were quite successful, and we thought, let's go back and do Dizzy, but sort of in a new style. So we went to Codemasters and tried to get them to do the game, but they weren't having it. But this is a little teaser we did for them.
Dizzy, Prince of the Yoke Folk.
He needs a hat. He looks much better with a hat.
Didn't have a hat in one scene. Well, I think he was doing a bit of an Indiana Jones, leaving the hat in the temple.
And then running. I can get under here.
Right, anyway.
That was his
Unfortunately, they didn't go for it.
Well.
One of our friends who wrote the Prince of the Yoke Folk, originally on the ST and Amiga, Paul Ranson of Big Red Software, he'd written it, he was really happy. Years later, he came back to us when they launched the iPhone and said, "Ooh,
But Dizzy on the
I could put Dizzy on the iPhone." And we said, "Well, yeah, good luck." And he made a little demo, showed us the demo, we were quite impressed. And we said, "Well, go and talk to Codemasters and see if they'll let you do it." And they did. So that did come out on the Apple and early Android phones, and it is just pretty much his Amiga version that he'd written,
With some pseudo graphics.
ported, but yeah, he needed to change the controls. It was weird controls. Well, given that there's new things around, maybe we can do a Kickstarter and see if there's people would like Dizzy to come back, and we'll try and talk to Codemasters. Codemasters were fairly receptive. I had a new boss then. They were fairly receptive to it. If we wanted to do it, that they would be okay with it. So we did a Kickstarter, started to sort of like mock
And
up.
we're just not as good at Chris's kicks.
Yeah, Chris is really good at Kickstarters.
Yeah, we should have
Anyway.
talked to Chris earlier.
Yeah, so it failed. But anyway, but we got artists to sort of like mock up, concept up what the screens would look like. We visited the enemies and we give them far more personality. It was all going to be 3D modelled and 3D animated, so they would have been really, really cool characters. We did a new look of what the graphics would look like. We wanted it to be slightly retro.
Andrew, please.
Yeah, we wanted it to be sort of stylistic and not dated, and be able to be played on different platforms. So be perfect for the Switch and things. At this point, I think it was PSP we were thinking of. But this was the look, and we still wanted it in these contained things. So it wasn't going to be fixed screen or just a roaming thing. It was going to be a side-on stage. So we were making them as 3D stage sets that you would move in and out of. Anyway, didn't happen, sorry. Right, anyway, 30 years passed, or whatever. We were doing a talk like this and accidentally found, when Philip was emptying his loft, a map. We're actually on stage, and it is, honestly God, he pulled out something and we're going, "What's this? Wonderland Dizzy?" And it's like, and then we thought, we didn't actually publish that.
Did that come out? And we were
So,
like,
but we're looking through the box and it's like, it says master on some of these discs. It's like, well, we might have mastered it, but we never published. But that's because of falling out with Codemasters. Anyway, so we did a Kickstarter for that, and that was successful, and that probably was done with Chris.
It was.
So,
Chris knows how to do Kickstarters.
he does. So that went out. You can play it online, and there were 250 cartridges made or something. So you'll probably find one or two around here. We found another one, and there's a photo of me actually programming it. And actually, that was part of the proof that it did exist, because if you look,
We found the photos
we
before
found the
we
photos.
found the source
Well, we're
code.
going, hang on a moment. That looks like the game, and it looks like it was sort of finished. It looks final. Anyway, so
it's so easy to forget how hard it was to take photos back then, especially if it's computer screens.
how many of you have photos of you at work, in your workplace? And that's when you've got smartphones, right? You don't. So you take your camera to weddings, birthdays, zoos, and holiday. I know about the zoos. I get so many bloody animal pictures. Anyway, it's a giraffe. I'll take a picture of a giraffe. But it's very rare that you actually take. That's our original office when we moved away from K-Masters. Anyway, so we thought there's another game that we found, and Philip looked through his loft, all the boxes, and he did find some discs. They weren't masters.
I didn't throw stuff away, I'm just not very good at cataloguing it, although I have moved house since then and it was all beautifully catalogued.
Anyway, so we managed to find enough that we put it together, and we did finish that game off.
And get that one out.
And get that
And
one
on
out.
Kickstarter with Chris.
Kickstarter, great, brilliant. Moving on. Okay, and you can play it. All these games are just online. You can just play them.
Youtube.com.
And that is a NES Nintendo game. And like back in the day, that would have held up pretty well. And I would say, I mean, that is a
It's really
screen.
annoying it didn't come out at all.
That is a screen grab with a few bits dubbed over. But it was quite a colourful old game for the old NES.
It was nice. Damn frustrating it didn't come out at all.
Yeah. Moving on. So Wonderland Dizzy, I'm sure many of you know about Wonderland
Oh,
Dizzy.
you didn't get my email from last night then going, oi, you forgot Panic.
Oh yeah, there was Panic. There was a. Okay.
There's another cartridge, that an old game we found, but Panic Dizzy, which Chris has done the Kickstarter. The cartridges are in production and they're coming back shortly and they're going to be sent out to people. Who
Oh, okay.
Back to Kickstarter.
So there should have been another slide in
Should have
there.
been. I know.
Whoops.
You didn't get my email from last
Wonderland.
night.
No, I didn't. No, and I was looking at my emails this morning.
Yeah, it's okay. Don't
Right.
worry.
Okay,
Things happen.
moving on. Wonderland is Wonderful Dizzy. So we decided that with the announcement of the Spectrum Next, and we said if it was popular and went ahead, and if the Spectrum Next happened, we'd make another Dizzy game for it. So
Wow, I'm not the last person, obviously.
Well,
It's a
team effort this time. So we've designed it all, and these
Sitting on our boat.
It was our mum's 80th birthday, so we took her for a trip on the Thames.
I took a photo saying, good, we're busy working.
It was during the Kickstarter, and we needed to do an update. And we thought, oh, this is quite funny. But anyway.
It didn't get any work done.
No, we didn't. No, it's all fabricated. Right, anyway, and then these people have all been doing it just as a hobby.
And it's all down to this guy now to just finish the
He's
job.
the programmer, and
Eugenie.
everything else is finished. No pressure.
He's close, he said July.
Yeah.
He said
He's
got
a good
some
guy,
time in
but he has a
July.
real job.
He has a real job. And they're all doing this as a hobby. So.
Okay, so we've been updating Dizzy from that original, like very black empty screens, and just big sprites of solid colour, to, ironically, it's gone character mapped. You know, not our choice, but they really want to do character
With
mapped.
compression systems.
They said that you could be more creative and more colourful with the landscapes, and it does give it a different look. It has moved it on a bit. So we've gone, okay, we've moved Dizzy on. He's got his hat because we do think.
And rucksack.
Yeah, and a rucksack. So
He looks a lot better with it.
we think he looks a lot better, yeah. And it runs very fast, and yeah, moving on. Okay, yeah.
Pitt's,
He's the one who's doing all the concept art and done a lot of art for this
all the
game.
new
Yeah,
the
so he's-
releases of the NES game.
He's done things like this. So, being a Wonderful Dizzy, it's clearly inspired by something that is out of copyright. So, you move along, you go, oh, that's out of copyright. Oh, that's out of copyright. So you just have to move with the things, because we're not going to go and license it off MGM or whoever. It'll be Disney now, won't it? Probably. Disney got everything. So, what's the next big Disney purchase after Avatar? Right, moving on.
Which is Avatar.
Yeah.
Have they done
Like
it?
2 weeks ago they purchased that, or a few weeks ago. Avatar, it's owned by Disney.
I don't know.
Yeah, you saw that coming because it's got a theme park. Right. Anyway, so characters have been redeveloped yet again because these guys have to now appear in the Wizard of Oz. But if you look back at the Wizard of Oz,
It's all about
recasting the characters sort of in that world, which is actually quite fun, and it actually maps quite well onto this, and that's it's just a sort
And
of
you've got a bunch of needy characters.
happy coincidence.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, actually, I went and bought the Wizard of Oz Blu-ray, and it's wonderful because it's all in full 3D. It's remastered in 3D for my 3D TV, and it is unbelievably good, and it is all full 3D. You would never know. It's really weird. So it's like watching some of these colorized war movies. You know when you see a sort of World War II in color, it's way better than that. In fact, Peter Jackson did a World War II thing, didn't he, for that memorial? Yeah, it's moved on from that again. It's all in 3D.
It's all in 3D.
Anyway. It works and maps quite nicely. Sorry, I'm a bit of a tech freak, I just love tech. So these are the characters as we have mapped them into the new game. These are some other characters you come across. Some are familiar and coming back to tell their part of the story. Philip has painstakingly drawn all of the screens, hand drawn in the old style. You can't see it. They're quite good. I mean, we've got.
I haven't got them yet, sorry.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was actually thinking, I got enough to get them, and I realised I left them at
Yeah.
work.
So
And the alarm was on, I can be asked to
So-
drive over and turn the alarm off. I always worry about turning office alarms off, because you ever screw it up, it's like the whole world lights up.
Well, it's connected to the police line. Anyway, those screens were all then copied across by Gerard, put into the Spectrum graphics. I put it all into Excel because we have modern technology nowadays. So rather than post-its on sticky bits of cardboard, oh God, you can't see that either. Anyway, but this is my Excel spreadsheet trying to work out
spaghetti.
with all the
Right
string.
spaghetti.
I mean, it used to be little pieces of string and little pins and stuff, but you can just do it with the arrows and stuff and just work out, looking at it and going, that goes to there, that goes to there, that goes, and try to work out that the puzzles are all threaded together. There's multiple chains, but you can never mess anything up, and it's actually quite difficult.
And by the way, that's quite complex.
Yeah. Anyway, so this game has, what is it? You can't even read the text. 68 screens, and it's all finished. They
Yes.
all work wonderfully. Right. Oh, hang on. I've got a video of the screen. Oh, and this is new music. This is the new music finished. Not doing it justice. It actually looks quite colourful.
Yeah, we're not doing it justice, are we?
Looks really good on that screen.
Does look beautiful there.
It's a 4K screen. My eyes aren't high enough resolution to see the screen, but
That fits in a spectrum.
yeah, it's a big old map for Spectrum. Can you guess what this bit is, anyone?
Kind of green colour. Emerald.
That's the Emerald City. There's a big curtain in there somewhere.
There is a curtain.
Anyway,
So that does prove the map's finished.
yeah, it's a finished map. And I have played the game. It's just broken at the moment. Don't play it again. Well, this actually does prove that the game is running. But I'll just jump it through because I think we should finish now. So, nice loading screen. Now that is a colourful use of attributes. Oops. So there he is in his little hut. Get out the hut, mate. Anyway, get out the hut. And walking around. Oh, he goes in front and behind things now. Look, he goes behind that fence. All masked nicely. Ah, there's a gate. We can't get past the gate.
That's the
Right, anyway, we'll move off that. So, Wonderful Dizzy is coming soon. The idea was to launch it with the Spectrum Next. Spectrum Next has been delayed, but it looks as though it's really close because I've seen it out there. And it's like the game is really
close as well.
Yeah, the game is really close, but it might not line up perfectly. Anyway, I think we shall finish it there.
Yeah.
With that being the last screen and all that. So,
Any questions? Got time for questions?
that was exactly 1 hour, by the way.
Sort of first screen in the video games, you've got the sort of polygons all very close by. Was that deliberate?
Absolutely.
Like
You've got to teach people.
the early version
Yeah,
of the tutorial.
no, absolutely. It is an early tutorial. We've got to make sure that people get the point
Yeah.
that I can pick out objects up. So put objects right next to them, really obviously. And then, once you've got an object, make sure that you can use it really, really close. So there really isn't much opportunity for the player to get lost or not understand what's going on. And the minute you've done one puzzle, you go, I see
Pretty much
where you're
all
going.
games were very restricted, and there's a
You
sort
get
of
back for asking the question.
yeah. There is the whole thing that a few years later, people talk about open world games, and then we play things like Grand Theft Auto and stuff, and it's actually quite confusing because it's too. Some of those games are designed too open, and you go, I'll just spend ages going around all over the place. So what we wanted to do is trap you on a single screen, like 1 or 2 puzzles to get out.
And
so you're in your hut, or you're in a
the
dungeon.
concept of pick up and drop.
Yeah, and then
you're not going anywhere.
Then we'll just move it out, move it out, move it out, and as you move out, you can get all convoluted puzzles because you completely understand the concept of what you're doing and you're opening up the world. So
done deliberately, yes.
yeah, and if you look at the Nintendo version, because we were trying to launch Fantastic Dizzy into America, and they'd never seen any of the previous games, and yet this was going to be the biggest of all of them because Fantastic Dizzy was all 3 games sort of mashed together.
Yeah.
Then we thought this is going to be really confusing because people will go, why didn't I jump on things to kill them? It's like, no, it's not Mario.
It's not Mario.
They all know Mario. So therefore, we actually had the title screen. If you just left it alone, actually solving puzzles of the growing the beanstalk one, we sort of like that puzzle. So on the title screen, it actually jumps around and solves the puzzle for you. So Americans don't need to read a manual because nobody reads manuals anyway. Just sit back and watch it, and you'll realise it's not about jumping on creatures to kill them. It's about picking up things, picking up the bean, taking it, putting it on the ground, get the water, throw the water, beanstalk. He climbs up the beanstalk, runs across the clouds or whatever.
With the logo.
And he picks up
He
the
runs
diamond.
across the logo and there's a little diamond.
There's a little diamond. He picks it up, and that was to sort of show this is the way you collect stuff in this game. So we actually designed the tutorial into the title screen. Yes.
You fight out between yourselves.
Is there any plans to release Dizzy on other platforms, on the new Dizzy game on the other platforms? Like,
We'll see how it goes. Never say never.
Oops, sorry. No,
But,
I'll do that.
I mean, generally, like,
You want to see Dizzy on Switch?
Yeah.
John's here with Fuse.
Yeah.
Where's John's not in here.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, he's kicking around somewhere. He said he's coming up to watch
yeah.
our talk.
So things,
Anyway,
things will
it's
happen
on the
but-
Switch in about a month's time.
Yeah.
There's so Fuse Technologies, and John's here, that CEO of Fuse. It's a game-making game for the Switch. It's really, really good. It's like amazing, and we've given him all the Dizzy graphics from all of these original games because we did say we've got everything. And so he's basically put all of those assets into the game as well, so that now they can make little demos with Dizzy and stuff, and everybody else who buys the game can make Dizzy games and then share them with people.
Yeah.
So that's Fuse.
And so we've got the agreement at
For Switch.
Masters and Nintendo to be able to do that. So, but it's not making sort of new full games.
Well, it's not us making them.
No,
it's everybody.
But this,
making
yeah,
them.
but this is sort of slightly retro market. This is
It's
kind of
a
like
hobby.
We making the old ones, yeah, as a hobbyist thing. It's not.
It's looking good, don't you?
It's not doing a full new published game. I mean, Codemasters. There's politics.
politics.
There's politics. Yeah, it's in. Yeah, give out that book. Right. Anyway, next question.
The puzzles, can you go through how you
Hup.
come up with the puzzles? Whether you went from the beginning or whether
Just read the notes, mate. I'll just send you the notes. Here.
We literally just
Well, I'll tell you
brainstormed what pairs of objects would be,
That's the design box, all right?
We were thinking, what are the...
And of course the other design was, although I haven't got Fantasy World Dizzy, this is Fantastic Dizzy, a lot of the design was actually just straight to these big boards. You just draw out all the screens and modify them as you need to.
But, I mean, to answer it in another way, there's an interesting thing that when we set up Blitz games, we did a few original games like Glover, Fire and Claude and things. And actually, when you've got a team of people, you start to employ people, and you try and get a team of people to work on a game, but it could be anything. Like, give an artist a blank sheet of paper and say, just paint me something beautiful. They usually go, but what? You want a portrait, a landscape, modern? And it's like, people like to work within constraints. A spectrum was a really lovely constraint to work in, and we actually liked the fact that you could only fit a certain amount in, and that was the challenge of fitting it in. And then it was a case of coming up with a story and finding out if the puzzles and the story would fit within a general theme that we had. So we think of a theme and think what would go in it. So if you think of the Wonderful Dizzy, you go, right, Wizard of Oz. So we go and watch a movie. Right, what can we do? Ooh, buckets of water throwing over witches. There's certain things you sort of like.
It'll happen, okay?
How do you catch a flying monkey? You just start thinking about what are the kind of things that will fit within that story.
I reckon an oil can on Tin Man.
Yeah, Tin Man needs an oil can. There's a heart. The Cowardly Lion needs a heart. Anyway, so it's all very similar. I don't know where we get these ideas from. You do wonder if we'd have watched Wizard of Oz when we were really young, and that had sort of stayed with us a bit. Because it does seem spookily similar.
It does.
But we'd never actually put the two and two together.
It does work very, very well.
Yeah, so so you come up with a general storyline and then just start thinking of what are the kind of things that you could put in which are
I think the other
fixing the problems of the world.
The other interesting thing is that me and Andrew, I was kind of sat there, you sat there, actually I think it was the other way around, and you didn't have to write a lot of stuff down. You go, hey, wouldn't it be good if we put sort of, we take a cow, like we do the Jack and the Beanstalk story, we take the cow to market and we trade that. Yeah, hang on a minute, cows are quite big to take to market, he's kind of quite a small character. Okay, we'll make it a small cow. We'll make it a pygmy cow. Right, okay. Take a cow to the market, stop it. It's ruining the flow. And basically we just work it all through and go, yeah, that works. So we kind of didn't write a lot of that stuff down because he's there.
Yeah.
So that's as much as was ever written down, plus the map that was drawn on.
But then, so we were writing some games like Glover, and we found
this is years
trying to sort of get a team of people to come up with a completely original game. We had so many flipping meetings that went round and round and round. We went like, does it fit? Does it fit? And it was generally that was a mechanics-based puzzle game. But what world environments do you put it in? It could be all sorts of different things. But then we came across.
Anybody ever play Glover?
Glover?
Yeah.
We kind of liked it, but it's a little bit muddled. You can see that there were.
Glover 2 was getting there.
Yeah, you can see that there
Before
was
it
an
got
infighting thing. But actually, we came across doing The Little Mermaid, Lilo and Stitch, and Chicken Run. And actually, the film companies would go, here's the film, although we get a script and some concept art or whatever. Make a game of that. You've got about, typically they were about 1 year. And it was brilliant. We went into these design meetings with a few artists and a couple of programmers and stuff, and we just said, right,
here's the brief.
We better have a demo level running within the next 3 months. We'll pick on that, we'll pick on that part of the game, what are the puzzles, and you can have all these things, and it's like, it's so obvious if it fits or it doesn't fit, because the film is there, everyone's going to see the film and want to play the game of the film. So it either fits or it doesn't fit, and it really concentrates the mind on those things. The only problem is, they were always rushed to market. All those games to movies movies to games were always rushed. They were.
Did I give you a badge?
Yeah.
Right.
I know your name now.
Is there
You've
anything?
signed your box.
I thank you very much. Is there anything hidden in your game? Did you ever put any little Easter
Yeah,
eggs?
there were things.
A couple of things. I mean,
Not hot
Fantasy
coffee.
World
They
Dizzy-
do not provide hot
Well, I
coffee in
mean, like
games.
stuff that maybe no one's come across yet.
No, I mean,
didn't find
there's not enough flipping memory in those machines. To be fair, I mean,
Don't hide it.
squeezing in the funny little joke about the deck chair was about all you could fit in the memory. I mean, you could kind of come up with these like wonderful ideas while you're coding. You go, yeah, want to fit, yeah, want to fit. I mean, none of the characters actually animate. Everybody reads so much personality into all those characters. None of them are animated. They can't.
There is no
There's
memory.
a single frame for each character.
And if they did animate, it would have been 2 frames. It would have been something so small that we were like, just don't do it.
Yeah. So
I think there was an idea of having Dozy have little Zeds floating up. I think he does in some versions, but in the Spectrum version, it's like the little tiny Zeds floating off his head. That's got to be 100 bytes wasted there. It's like you could probably get another screen in for the little Zeds.
But on the Harry and the deck channel, were there any other like in jokes that you got and you found funny that no one else really knew or
No, I don't think so. But I mean, I have to say it's that long ago we can't remember.
Next.
Do you think there'll ever be like a role-playing game of Dizzy where it's like an open world, like kind of Fallout, but in Yoke Folk land? And
Not until the politics are sorted out, Codemasters. So,
Which isn't going to happen anytime soon. Here we go.
Sadly, I wish it did, but
Sorry.
that was
If
the
you weren't
problem.
writing games,
Yeah.
what do you think your careers would have been?
Do you know that is a funny one because we didn't want to do anything else other than that.
Just
And once,
never ever thought anything else.
In about 81, our mate, his dad had an Apple IIe, and we started playing that, and pretty much since that day, which we must have been 13.
We're going to make games.
And that's all we ever
Never thought about anything
No,
else.
which is lucky because we've been able to do it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
don't know. Honestly, don't know. So don't do anything else. Well, give talks. Right. Hang on. She's been very patient, everybody.
Well, I actually have to thank you for that because this taught me patience as a kid. When you're small.
And problem solving,
Yeah,
obviously.
that's always wonderful, especially when you started rolling. And,
Oh, yeah.
So, you did
Yeah,
I'm happy to be patient.
I have
for you
some
in return.
regrets over the rolling.
The rolling got better as the versions went on, where we basically were a little bit more forgiving. So if the roll finished like that, he'd
Yeah.
actually tip himself back up on later
Yeah.
games. But on the first games, it's
It was
like
very
if
unforgiving.
he was like there, he'd still carry on doing the roll.
That is a bit of a throwback from the Jet Set Williams Manic Minded. That gameplay was all about
Was allowed to be
navigating.
tough.
It
It
was
was allowed to be
navigating
tough.
platforms was actually gameplay on some of those early games, and we thought, well, we've got to have that gameplay in there. That it's quite difficult sometimes to jump onto platforms, but we won't kill him. We'll just make it fall off, and we'll make it slightly frustrating that you have to climb back up. So that was our.
Yeah, he does occasionally die
Yeah,
accidentally.
they
When
may
he
be.
was drowning him, I drowned him 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, in the treehouse.
Yeah, if you can jump well off tracks, yeah. Okay, but that was back in the day. You're trying to think what is the gameplay within a game. We were trying to move it to puzzle solving and story, but knowing that people saw it as a platform game, and platform games were about the difficulty of jumping from platform to platform. We thought we'll make it a lot easier, and it was a sort of logical reason, sort of semi-logical, and we thought it was quite funny. But we tried not to make it too frustrating, but it clearly is a bit.
It was great, like I say, for me when I was younger than we were similar. But what I was going to ask if there was no constraints, no worry, what other franchise would you mix Dizzy with if you could?
Right, so years and years later, this is an interesting thing, and that is after we did Chicken Run, we were working for DreamWorks and Aardman, a wonderful company, and they offered us the rights to this unknown thing called Shrek. Never heard of it. Would we like the rights to Shrek? Well, the computer game rights of Shrek. Sadly, we turned it down.
Well, we negotiated all the way through.
We did negotiate the contract, and
But
eventually
we
decided.
had one team available. There was a tight timeline because there was a movie coming, but we weren't sure what the movie was going to be because the previous film that they had made before Shrek.
If
was
they hadn't made
Ants.
such a rubbish movie before, and I'm sorry because you'll know the movie,
It's Ants, isn't it?
it's Ants
Yeah.
with a Z.
It clashed with Bugs Life, didn't
It
it?
clashed with Bugs Life,
Yeah.
but so we were told.
So we were
would you be interested in this? It might be something that would make a good computer game. And we looked at it and thought, yeah, we could make sort of Shrek a little bit like Dizzy, and they have got a lot of the ideas of mashing these old sort of fairy tale things together. And we thought that's quite funny that they've done a similar thing. So we did fully negotiate a contract. But one of the things where they actually snooked themselves and they thought it was a good thing, they said, it's the team that made that movie. Ants has just come out in the cinema. We went to see the film Ants and thought, that's a bit...
But then,
we just didn't like
but
it.
then the problem was that we got off. So we had one.
Clearly Shrek is brilliant.
We had one team.
love
We
Shrek.
had one team available because this was PS1 days, late PS1. So
Yeah.
this is 98, 99.
Yeah, somewhere about that.
So you need a team of people, artists, musicians, coders, and stuff. And we had, and you need about a dozen people. And we had one team available. And as we were about to sign that contract and do Shrek, we got offered Frogger 2. Now Frogger 1 on PlayStation was one of the biggest selling games on the PlayStation, and we got offered Frogger 2.
And yeah, look, fans of Frog. Frog is really cool, so we thought, yeah, we can do this. So we put that same team. It was like, well, that same team. They
So
can
we
either do
didn't
Frogger
have
2 or they can do
availability.
Shrek. So we put them on Frogger 2. No massive regrets. It sold over 2 million copies. Frogger 2 is awesome if anybody's ever played it. It's a really, really nice game.
But-
There's a bit of politics at the end of Frogger 2, which we won't talk about, but the reason why there wasn't a Frogger 3.
Yeah, there would be another book to talk all about these things. The problem is,
They've still got lawyers.
It's Disney, DreamWorks, Konami. They've all got lawyers. So,
all of them have got lawyers.
But there are some funny stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do wonder sort of if we had gone down the line of Shrek, because that would have allowed us, because we would have had the full interactive rights for Shrek. And we probably would have done loads of Shrek games, which would have started to cross over with the old Disney stuff, which would have been quite funny.
Yeah,
But
I'd love to see a Disney cameo. Like,
yeah, we'd have put a
just
cameo and
something
stuff
like
in
that,
there.
just like in the background. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, are we done? No? Yes? We're not done.
At what point did it stop being a hobby and then become a business? Back in the day.
That was the conversation with our dad when
Yeah.
we were going through school, writing games.
Yeah, you're going to university this time next
So
year
it
if
was
you don't make
these
some money.
Games.
Like-
Where's that thing? That plastic thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that.
This plastic thing.
Right, I'm looking inside on. I couldn't see it. But some of those games, like KEV, for
Yeah, I'll tell you what, no, I wouldn't try and get it out of
No,
there.
you glued them in or something.
No, I
Right,
didn't. I
there you
didn't.
go.
It is-
So, but
The
we
plastic's
wrote games
aged.
while we were at school, published them, and we didn't make any money. And that was the conversation with our dad about go to university and get real jobs. So like get a degree and get real jobs. We were going to do engineering or something.
Yeah,
weren't we?
electrical engineering.
You were being sponsored by. You got a sponsorship from.
British Aerospace, as they were then.
I didn't.
Which is Airbus
Anyway.
now. Yeah, I would have been paid a salary of £12,500 to go to university. It's a bit different now, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, yes, they flipped that. Anyway,
And the funny
So-
thing was, there was no commitment. I even had to work
yeah.
for them at the end.
So we were
which
given
was
that year out to turn
Funny
it from a
going on
hobby to a business. So it was a case of start making some decent money, and if you don't in the next year, then you're going off to university. And we didn't want to go to university. They didn't know about 8-bit computers. They didn't know about graphics or anything. Computers at that point, they did have some because they would program us. They would teach us COBOL and Lisp and Fortran and
Might have even done some punch card if we were lucky.
yeah. So because we did go to the universities and find out
Oh,
who does what
in all
in
the open days.
Yeah, we did the open days, and it was just shocking because we were like,
Graphics, anyone?
Have these guys heard of microcomputers? No. And so we just didn't want to go because it was, well, these are happening. Look, they're all over the place. You can get them in the shops, like Spectrums, Commodores.
86.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had to make money, and me and the darlings setting up Codemasters and writing Robin Hood and stuff made.
Did I try and
But
lob
it
one eyes
did-
at you?
No.
Can I do it then now?
So,
Right.
but it did make us actually concentrate
We've probably got to
and
wrap
actually
up, I
try
think.
to make a business. Because most people just do this stuff.
We've got a
for
business plan and everything. I've still got a business plan, and there's a little
Makes
excerpt
money.
from there.
Oh, oh.
No, there's a little excerpt. It's all scanned in, and there is a full, proper business plan.
Yeah.
I say this because right now we've been writing lots of articles for gamesindustry.biz and
Pocket
PC
Gamer.
Gamer, PC Games Insider, and Pocket Gamer.
Busy
We've
writing
got lots of
various
articles of
articles.
advice, and one of them coming in a few weeks' time is called "Write a Business Plan." If you're being an indie, write a business plan. And then I make reference to the fact that we wrote a business plan. Didn't really agree with writing it, but we kind of had to. And the reason being is it was in the Thatcher time when you got paid for the enterprise allowance scheme. If you set up a business and you were unemployed, but let's not talk about that too much. We were unemployed.
We just left school. We had to sign on.
We had to sign on, but then the government will pay you. But one of the conditions was you had to have a business plan, so we had to write a business plan. But actually, we found a business plan, scanned it in, put it in the Dropbox with everything else. There's a little excerpt of it in there, and actually, it was a pretty decent business plan. Obviously, I would advise people do much better business plans these days. But in the article, although I'm sure they'll knock it out, I've actually put a link to our original business plan. But I have to say that pretty much whenever you do articles for online sites and you put a hyperlink, they usually just remove the hyperlinks. I don't know why people do that.
I mean, nowadays, the reason we're writing articles and stuff is because we sold our business, our software company, to Rebellion. So if you look at games like Evil Genius 2, that's a lot of people who work for us. And the new Nazi Zombie Army 4.
Which got announced last week.
Yeah, got
properly.
announced last week. So, but we are, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. So
We are consultants.
we are consultants and writing things and investing in things. and we do a lot of talks at universities and things. And to answer your question, I meet so many indies and so many students who all just, they think that they're going to be games writers and stuff, but they're hobbyists, you can tell. They just want to write the games that they want to play, even if that means that they're going to write copies of Overcooked or something. And it's like, cool game, well, I won't copy it, it's already been written. And so people really need to sort of sit down and think, okay, I've got the skills, they've taught me at university how to make
And
games.
if I want to carry on doing this as a
Focus
career,
on who will spend money. Because frankly, you've all got smartphones. How many of you pay money to play games on your smartphones? Interesting, Switch has done phenomenally well because it's a proper games playing machine, and they charge money. I personally think it's a little bit high, and there's a whole digital and physical goods thing, but people have gone back to buying decent design games as opposed to these sort of free-to-play things which can sometimes suck money out of some people, but they're not the games that we all are fond of, personally. Rant over.
are we done? Good? Happy? Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.